Hello, YouTube. Let's talk about bourbon again. So, as I said in the past, I don't really do bourbon a whole lot on this channel, mainly because there's a lot of folks on the YouTubes that already do tons and tons of stuff on bourbon and rye and lots of other American whiskey. And frankly, a lot of them are just better than I am. They sort of know the recent changes in the territory a little bit better. And whereas I'm more sort of in the let's explore stuff that isn't so much on the radar kind of, that's kind of my deal. However, I'm also a little bit of a veteran of the game at this point. So I have the advantage that I can provide some context between sort of what you can get now and what you could get back in the day and what you can't get now. And so the occasion of doing this video was actually my stumbling across this, which is a little sample bottle of Blanton's single barrel bourbon. About 10 years ago, I think about in 2011 or so, as I was driving through Kentucky, I bought a whole ton of miniatures that I was gonna give around to friends and save up for fun and try for fun and stuff like that. And one of the ones I saved for myself and never really opened was this Blanton's, and then I totally forgot about it until like a week ago. And then I thought, when I saw it, in the basically buried in a box, oh gee, wouldn't it be fun to do a comparison of this Blanton's, which you really can't get now, with a bunch of stuff that kind of represents the scene as it currently stands. So, by the way, this is kind of cool. Look at this. It's it's just a miniature version of a little grenade, complete with a horse on top. This is plastic. No, actually, it's metal. They actually put a metal horseman on top of the little sample bottle. How great is that? It's a little bit empty because I did write some notes on all of these in advance. So what are we putting our blends up against? Blends are obviously from from Buffalo Trace. This is from their Mashbill number 2, which is their high rye one, which is really not high rye at all. I think it's about 10 to 12% rye is the current estimate. We are putting that against Smooth Ambler's Big Level, which is a wheated bourbon. It's 21% wheat that they make in West Virginia. Most people are familiar with Big Level mostly through their source products. They were one of the big pushers of MGP back in the day, and they were very honest about that. But this is their own stuff, distilled right on the West Virginia border. And I've tried this before and enjoyed it because it is an example of a wheated bourbon and it's kind of putting the wheat right at the front instead of sort of burying it in oak. I kind of like that. And this unlabeled monster is something from my friend Jeremy on the Reddits. This is Smoke Wagon Uncut Unfiltered Bourbon Whiskey. This is batch number 31. And this is the high rye MGP bourbon. I think it's like 36% rye, something like that. No idea how old this is. In fact, I don't think any of these have age statements on them. That's a little more generous than the others, but whatever. So what we got here is we got Buffalo Trace, which is now unavailable. We got MGP, a good fair independent bottling representation of MGP, and the Nevada folks are fairly open that they're getting this from elsewhere, and good on them for the openness. And the Big Level from a wheated bourbon from a relatively recent new producer. So different kinds of bourbons, and at the same time, different representations of kind of what's out there. All right, so blends. Let's start with the blends. What am I going to say about this? All right, so back in the day, I always found Blanton's a little bit garish and overpriced. Now I think the retail is up around 70, 80 bucks, something like that. And frankly, back in the day, I didn't even find it really worth the price they were charging for it. If you realistically want to buy it, you're probably going to be paying more like 3 times that because you're only going to find it on basically the secondary markets. Now, I've in the past I've talked about the reasons why the bourbon market is behaving the way it is. In brief, I'm not gonna go on that spiel again. In brief, it's not because more people are drinking bourbon, although that's probably true. It's not because of stuff like your friend Ron, who bought up like 3 bottles of the last Booker's limited release because he thinks they're going to be worth something. Maybe they will. No, this is really about income inequality. This is about people who have impossible amounts of money needing to put that money somewhere. And occasionally they're deciding to, put it into the collectibles market. And every time one of those folks decides to write a, 6 or 7 figure check to a whiskey collection investment fund, like that's going to throw the entire market out of whack because you'll just get entire, shelves full of stuff pulled off and thrown into a warehouse. That's what's happening, and that's why it isn't sort of affecting. That's why there's sort of some things like Blanton's which are just ghosts now, and some things like are fine. And no one's you can still buy Jim Beam Black. It's fine. Actually, Jim Beam Black is a good one to keep in mind when you try Blanton's. Anyways, on the nose for this, the famous Grenade. Again, this was, I don't know exactly when this is bottled, but probably around 2010, 2011, I would think. This little sample, 46% alcohol. So initially on the nose, there's lots of honey on this. It's very aromatic, floral, honeyed, especially honeydew honey comes into mind, which is a very sort of heavy, bitter kind of honey. But other honeys too, like there's like a clover honey at work here, a blossom kind of honey. But then throw a lot of oak into that as well. So you're getting cherry, like more cherry skins than like actual cherries, nutshells, more cherries, some kirsch in there, some wood glue, but nice aromatic wood glue. Pine needles, dried dust, old books, like dusty pages, dusty leather. And slight rye note, kind of crackery rye note. It smells a little bit like wassa, which is the best cracker in the world, by the way, if you've never tried it. It's this, they come in these little packs. I think they're from Sweden or something. This smells like the light rye variety of wassa. So go buy some. There's a little creamed corn there. And also, as long as I'm thinking about it, it's like some candy corn thrown in there as well. Like you mingled your creamed corn with some candy corn. And a heck of a lot of baklava. That's a flavor note I've been using a lot. It's if you never tried like real fresh baklava, go get it and you will begin immediately seeing it in a zillion different whiskeys, bourbons in particular. But like just tons of honey poured on top of your baklava. It's nice. It's very aromatically pleasant. Let's put it that way. On the palate. Okay. Initially, very sweet, very fruity, very honeyed on the initial attack. Quite light too. It's sort of very velvety on my tongue initially. It does get a little awkward in the finish. We'll talk about that in a second. And it's very short in the mouth. It's just kind of, right past my, my middle teeth, it just disappears. It just kind of goes all Patrick Swayze, ghost on me. Throw some, there's kind of lingering, it's more clover honey on the finish than honeydew. There's that candy corn note again. candy corn stewed in some like artisanal gin, some very sort of, nice gin that isn't using too much juniper, but it's a little bit there. Like an Old Tom or something. There's quite a lot of wood on the back end though. It gets a little bit bitter and a little bit like wood sour, actually. Some tannic oak, like just, oaky wood. It's a little bit dusty too. And there's a kind of like, porridge made with honey kind of thing, just graininess. But then that sort of weird, awkward thing with the oak, which I'm not super fond of. Not bad. So this in a way reminds me of the Whistle Pig 10-year-old that I did a review on recently. It's in that it's real, right? It's bottled at higher strength. It's real stuff, but it's very aromatically pleasant. But aside from like a little bit that sort of woody hit on the back end, it's actually extremely easy. Like it's just, I could see a lot of people getting into this just because it's not something that's going to push them too hard. Except for that wood on the back end. But I think people kind of expect that maybe in their whiskeys, so maybe they kind of let it get away with it. And add like half a squirt of water because I have found this does not like water very much. We'll get back to that in a second. All right, moving on to the big level from Smooth Ambler, West Virginia. 50% alcohol, so a little bit stronger. And I think this was like a 2020, maybe 2021 batch, but probably 2020. I have no idea. It didn't say on the bottle. Okay, seriously weedy is what I would say. This you can tell it's bourbon. It smells bourbony, but I mean there's a little bit of vegetalness in there too, a little green note. But the main driving factor here is the wheat itself. There's shredded wheat, like the cereal, the shredded wheat cereal from General Mills. That's more what this smells like. Maybe there's like a little frosted mini wheat thrown in there to make it less austere. But it's the ones with the frosting, a little bit of that too. But then you like just throw an oak plank in there, like a green, slightly immature oak plank. But it's kind of nice. There's wheat. There's a lot of grass, dried grass, fresh grass. Kind of that dusty attic thing I was getting on the Blantons. That's still here. A minty note, a kind of muddled mint sort of note. Like you just took your muddler with some mint and went that kind of thing, but with a bunch of wheat in the glass too. Kind of like an unripe wild berries. Like there was some green berries and kind of pulled them off and sniffed them. And as funny as this is going to sound, there's a tonic water note in there. There's like a quinine, like a carbonated quinine water thing going on. And something which my mother-in-law introduced me to, which is herb tea. Like not herbal tea, which is that stuff you get, you buy at Whole Foods, but just, you go outside and you get some fresh herbs from, the lawn, and you put them with some hot water and you drink it. That kind of thing. So we're back on the grassy note, but it's a little more herbal and tea like than just pure grass. None of this is making any sense, but we're moving on. And maybe a little almond butter in there. Just throw some almond butter in as part of the oaky note. I mean, it's nice. It's green. You're gonna have to get over the greenness if you're gonna get into this, but I like some green in my bourbon, so I'm okay. On the palate. Oh, that's very nicely balanced. It's a little extreme in both directions, but the extremes are sort of balancing out a little bit. Arrives quite sweet on like the frosted mini wheats are taking over now, and there's some like those little pumpkin candies from Halloween. Those are in there in this big level. But then it finishes quite dry and quite herbaceous and green, nicely so. So you're getting cinnamon, some apple slice, some like toasted apple slices, really sort of apple strudel kind of. Very appley, very pastry-like. But then you get that minty, grassy herb tea thing again on the finish. White pepper, some nice hit of wood tannins. This is actually going back further back in my mouth than the Blanton's was, and I'm pretty sure this is a little bit younger. On the website, they claim 5+ years, which seems about right based on how this is behaving. And there's a little bit of like a corn syrup note on this, like the caro, the dark caro, which was never my favorite, but here it's not offending me too much. And it still has that tonic water note. It still has that quinine thing. Like I want to throw some gin in here and maybe garnish it with something and enjoy a nice summer day. This is nice. I mean, it's very extreme on like the sweet side and the very green herbaceous side, both. But that manages to balance itself out. Yeah, I'm enjoying this. Nice job, Smooth Ambler. I think this is like the difference is like just the stills. I think that's it. Like you go back to Stissel Weller, right? The textbook way you distill wheated bourbon. Like they had these gigantic stills, column stills, where they pulled out all the plates. So it was just one like column, right? And like all your congenitors have to like really fight to get their way up that damn thing. And as a result, you get a very clean spirit, which is just a beautiful canvas upon which your oak can work. And this is much more, like you look at the stills in the they have a bunch of them in the Smooth Ambler facility. And they're different kinds, but they're all these short, stocky things, and all of your wheat flavors are just going to go up and out. And that's kind of what I'm getting in this glass. Like the oak's there, man, is the oak there, and it is seriously nice and vegetal. But it's playing right alongside those sort of strong notes from the distillate, which I like. I am into that style. Moving on though, Smoke Wagon, uncut, unfiltered bourbon whiskey, batch 31. So this is MGP, and it's 36% rye. Best. Thanks, Jeremy. All right, 57.16% alcohol. It's always going to be fun when they get into like the deep into the decimal points. All right, here we go. Bottled 12/9/2020. If you're curious. On the nose, very candy-like, very very desserty. But, again, still recognizable as a bourbon. This smells like a Snickers bar that's been smothered in dried cherries. Very desserty. But then, I mean, you smell a little deeper, and those herbaceous notes start to come out again. The fennel, the caraway, the juniper. There's a little ginniness in there. Some tea, some like... English breakfast tea. It's English breakfast tea where they've done 2 lumps and then 2 more lumps and then 2 more lumps on top of that. But it's English breakfast tea. Very woody, but I mean the 36% rye. And that is still coming through those herbal touches from the distillate. You're still getting it's strangely it gets very floral actually, which you don't really expect from rye heavy MGP stuff, but in this case, yeah, we're getting rose water, baklava again. We're sort of going back to Blanton's territory here. Not really honey, but more like pancakes and with syrup than honey. Okay, there's a little honey. But then there's like a touch of Henrik's gin in there, like cucumber-driven gin, which I like, and more cherry. It's nice. It's very, you have to have a little bit of a thing for desserty bourbons to get into this, but I do. I like this. 57-ish% alcohol. It does come through. This is a bit hot, but lovely. This is probably, I would guess, just because of the way it behaves in the palate, this is probably the oldest thing here. Not to say it's that old, but I would guess it's older than the other two. Rye is very sweet. Almost like, mix your cane syrup with some corn syrup. But then it's still got that sort of ginny, fennel, wild cherry thing kind of coming in to break that up, and a little Brussels sprout too, like one Brussels sprout leaf. Yeah, some ginger, like really more like ginger ale, like Canada Dry. Southern sweet tea, definitely. This has been, brewing on the porch all day in the sun. Gummy worms, weirdly enough. That Snickers note again. Well, maybe not Snickers, because Snickers has that. Is Snickers the one that has also like the nougaty stuff as well as like the nuts and the chocolate and the whatever the gooey. No nougaty stuff. Whatever the one is that doesn't have the nougaty stuff, that's this. But whatever. I don't. Close enough. Snickers, tea, ginger, and there's like a cinnamony, like a babka cake. Yeah, cinnamon babka cake. Very dessert-like. Kind of, gets decently far in my mouth. And hangs on nicely in the finish with a kind of, burned toffee note that I find pleasant. This is good. It doesn't strike. It isn't what I expect from a very, very high rye bourbon, but it's lovely. Oh wait, have I been adding water to all these? I haven't. I have not been adding water to these. I'm negligent in my duties. Okay, there's a squirt from the big level, and there's a couple of squirts for the smoke wagon. Okay, let's see if this is close. One more squirt. Okay. All right, back around to the Blantons. Now, in my last experiment with this, it did not like water at all. But let's see if this comes out any better. All right, on the nose of the Blantons. It gets a little bit weird. It's still very honeyed. It's still very floral and aromatic. But now that there's a kind of a ginger ale thing going on, and that sort of bitter sour oak character also comes out a little bit more. More cinnamon, more honey, like a couple of white raisins thrown in there. It's really the oak that's coming out, and I'm not. It's not really improving things that much on the palate. Doesn't really develop much. Ooh, I take that back. It does develop a little bit, but the development is mainly to bring the oak out. Ooh, yeah. Honey is still there. The cinnamon note. There's an allspice note. cardamom note. And then that sort of awkward oaky finish has kind of climbed up a couple of steps to really dominate this. A little more peppery. Kind of a, what is that? White pepper, but also like pink pepper. The pink peppercorns. A little bit of that. Try it again. Fine. Ooh, yeah. And the ginger ale thing, the sort of flat ginger ale, also climbs in there along with the awkwardness of the oak. Yeah. I mean, it's pleasant. It's easy, except for that oak thing. And I can see why people like that. But I mean, I would give this. It's also, relatively simple compared to, in the sort of broad scheme of things. So I would give this, 81 points, and even at retail price, this would be a major pass for me. I do not think this is worth, the 70, 80 bucks, and I certainly don't think it's worth, 200 odd plus. It's nice, but I mean, frankly, you can do better. Let's put that there. But the bottle is cool. Look, it's got a grenade shape, and it's got a little horse guy on top. And if that's all you want for your 200 odd bucks, then that's great. That's fine. All right, moving on to the big level, the smooth Ambler with a squirt of water. Gets more grassy actually, which I like. It's sort of pleasant oaky grass, like oak smoked grass. More fresh wheat coming out too. Grass, dry grass with freshly cut grass. Some old tea bags, but nice. I like old tea bags. Just kind of a damp attic smell. Like your attic isn't completely weatherproofed, and it sort of was raining, and it's kind of, stinks in there a little bit, but it's also dusty, that kind of thing. I like it, and there's a little bit of that Brussels sprouty thing going on too. On the palate. Okay, like the Blantons, the wood comes out a little bit more, but here it's got those other elements to kind of balance off the sort of explicit woodiness. So you're kind of getting the nutshells and the tree bark and the wood smoke, but then you've also got that grassiness, that lovely grassiness, and the tea bags, and that kind of like Halloween candy thing going on, and the mintiness and the frosted mini wheats, right? It's nice. Ooh, after dinner mints. After dinner mints start to come out and dominate this a little bit. The little multicolored ones that are kind of pastel colored. Those. I like this. With water, it becomes a little more dry and austere. Like this is one for I think there are still folks out there who will walk into a bar and say, "Give me a dry bourbon." This is one for them. There's a little bit of sweetness in here to balance everything out. But in general, this is a dry bourbon, and it's a very distillate-driven bourbon, and I appreciate that. I think this is a very good effort. I would give it, I don't know, 83 plus. Can we go 83 plus on this? Not killing me, but a good strong effort for. 55 odd bucks, especially in that sort of very competitive wheated bourbon category, which has been so thoroughly emptied by the collectors as of late. If you like wheated bourbons, this is a good one to try because it's very heavy on the wheated aspect of it. Yeah, good stuff. Well done, Smooth Ambler. All right, and now back to MGP and the Smoke Wagon. I mean, it just smells like oat candy now, which I like. I'm enjoying. I mean, the difference between this and the sort of Maker's Mark I was panning is this has more interesting things going on in the margins, in the corners. It's not just the sort of, you know, oaky, sweet, brown sugary thing. Yeah, so it's oat candy, but there's like a little rhubarb thrown in there. Still those ginny notes, the fennel notes. Like oak smoke, but also like an herb smoke thing. Like you smoked some herbs under your bourbon. It's nice. There's like a that pancake thing is still there, but it's almost like you lit it on fire now. Like your syrupy pancakes are now on fire, along with your herbs and your oak plank. It's nice. It's not hugely developed a whole lot since I added water, but there are a lot of people who are really going to be into this nose. I can guarantee that because it's so delicious and desserty on the palate. Oh, nice. Okay. So here's what ooh, I'm gonna add one more squirt to this. What water does to this, it doesn't give you that much more on the nose, but it really extends the development. This thing is not only pushing it further back in my mouth, the water's not only sort of getting it further back, it's now adding lots of little nice developments. It sort of starts on like Butterfinger in the front and ends on like a, you know, like a glass of sweet tea spiked with gin. Some ginger in there, kind of a cherry thing, like a black cherry. But also coffee. Maybe some sort of Central American Honduran coffee beans, coffee grounds really. Dried flowers, a little grassiness, but much less than the big level. Fennel again, more fennel than sort of licorice or anise. And this sort of lovely, the finish is so much better with water. Just this nice, spicy, sweet, dry, lightly herbal kind of lingering thing. Yeah, I dig this. I dig this. Initially, when I scored this, I gave it an 85 minus. The minus because I find it a little bit too sweet for my taste. It's a little too desserty. I'd kind of forgotten how desserty that older MGP can get. But you know, I'm just being a grouch. I'm being a Scrooge, and a Grinch. So I'm gonna take that minus off and just give this a straight 85. This is very good. It has complexity and it also has deliciousness. And yeah, if you're a bourbon fan, don't get scared away by the rye content. It really doesn't come through. This really doesn't come across as rye heavy as it actually is. It's really just a you know, oat candy with a lot of depth and complexity when you sort of look at it with the critical eye. And that's great. I feel like that's something a lot of folks get into. So conclusions here. You know, Blanton's is a cool bottle. Otherwise, I don't think it's particularly worth it, especially where the market is. Big level. This would be a lovely house bourbon. Honestly, it's dry and serious, but you know, young and interesting. And I mean, I would love to see where like an 8-year-old version of this could go, because it still comes across a little bit rough right now. So give it a little more time, maybe. You know, maybe they could do a special release at some point. And the Smoke Wagon is the winner, but it's also, I think, the most expensive retail-wise. So there you go. So there's I mean, the takeaway from this that I want you to take to have is, you know, the old standbys like Blanton, they're good. Or I shouldn't say they're good. They're fine. They have their charm to them. But don't for a minute think that, you know, you're missing out a whole lot by, you know, not being able to buy this now. Well, like at least with things like this sort of sitting there on the shelf in their place. Because these are rather, you know, I don't want to say spectacular, but they're, you know, well worth your money. And that's kind of all you can ask for. So that's all I've got. Thanks for watching and cheers.